What is the most disturbing thing you've come across at someone else's house? Story 1. When my friend's little brother, who is now seeing a psychiatrist, was in high school, he became obsessed with a girl in his math class. He asked her for tutoring sessions and they started meeting 2 times a week at her house. This went on for about 6 months or so, until my friend was doing laundry one day at her house and was picking up some of her brother's clothes in his room, when she found a large white shoe box. Always being a little too nosy, she decided to open it up and see what it was. The content was horrifying. Over the course of 6 months, her little brother had picked every opportunity to take anything that the girl had intimately touched. There was used pads, tampons, underwear, and even a few nail clippings and loose hairs, which were carefully laid in a Ziploc bag. The inner lining of the shoebox was also decorated with pictures of her which he doubtlessly took while she wasn't looking. My friend never confronted her brother or anyone about this, since she was so creeped out. However, she did show me this box, and it was truly horrific. Story 2. My boyfriend had this dorm roommate in college who literally never showered. He smelled like lunch meat, and he drank like a 6-pack of Mountain Dew every day. He played WoW and never left the room, ever. And there was clothes and trash and dirt all over the floor all the time. But for that last part, I partially blame my boyfriend for not sweeping. Story 3. I posted this story a couple of months ago. I think it belongs here. When I was a kid and the NES came out, there was this poor kid at school that was rejected by everyone. His name was Patrick. There were horrible stories about his parents. Small town. His father was called Big Joe, and I remember seeing him peeing in the middle of the mall's parking lot on a hot summer day in front of everybody. They were a very, very dirty family. So one day Patrick told me his uncle, a wealthy man, sent him a NES for his birthday and that he would love it if someone came to play with him. I was reluctant at first because I wasn't sure my parents would approve. But I went anyway because I felt bad for him being rejected and alone. So we went to his place, and as soon as we opened the door, there was the worst smell I have ever encountered in my whole life. It was like a wall. You could actually feel it on your skin, I think. Just writing these words makes me gag. I was trying to breathe from the mouth, but I was tasting it. I had never seen anything like it. There were dirty dishes, cigarette butts, and dog excrement all over the place. There was a sofa in the kitchen with a small TV to which the NES was hooked up. His mother was playing it and didn't even notice we were there. There were empty bottles of soda and bags of chips all around her. Patrick asked her if she played Mario all night and all day without sleeping, but he had a hard time getting her attention. After a couple of tries, she finally noticed we were there and said, "Oh, sorry, you brought a friend to play Mario? I'll let you play. That game is so much fun I soiled my pants." At first I thought she was joking, but when she stood up, it was obvious that a woman literally soiled her pants and peed all over the couch. Her pants and the couch were all wet and there were excrement stains on her legs. And the smell. I went to what seemed like a sink covered with dirty dishes and puked in a bowl containing an unknown substance in a late stage of putrefaction. I told Patrick that I had to leave and ran out the door. I never told my parents about this story because I feared their reaction, but I should tell them the next time I see them. Story 4. I was at this guy's house. He was pretty weird to begin with, but we had been friends for so long I didn't seem to notice anymore. Until this one day, I'm in his room watching TV with him. His walls were covered in pictures of old movie stars from the 20s or 40s. I was sitting on his floor when I felt something scratching my leg a bit. I looked down and it was a toenail clipping. Whatever, I think. He probably forgot to throw it away. Nope. Once I saw the first toenail clipping, I couldn't stop seeing them. Literally, there were hundreds of toenail clippings all over the floor. He saw me looking at the floor somewhat horrified. He chuckled and called them his friends. Story 5. I was about 12, my neighbor was about 15, and his little brother was about 9. The said neighbor and I are sitting in his room playing the original Medal of Honor back in the late 90s. His little brother came running in, waving a big floppy purple adult toy that he found in his mom's room. His older brother then grabs it from him, slaps him in the face with it, and tells him to put it back. I never laughed so hard in my life. Story 6. I had some good friends, geeks, who lived in the bad part of town. Their apartment was fully infested with roaches, but they had forged a sort of Joe's apartment relationship with them. They loved to paint miniatures, and when a roach got too close, they would smack them with a paintbrush. So they had all these Braveheart roaches running around with bodies half colored in bright paint. Anyways, they're playing this long drawn out game one day. I don't remember what it was, but think Risk, with one of my friends who is just this endless hard luck case. Great guy, a great attitude, but life finds him and mistreats him whenever it can. After hours of play, he wins and exultantly jumps up and cheers. The only problem is that he leaps out of his chair like Super Mario, fist bumps a styrofoam ceiling tile, dislodging it and causing a rain of multicolored roaches to come cascading onto him. I hear he just stood there and screamed for a while. Story 7. My discovery wasn't even in somebody else's house, unfortunately. As a kid, I found my mother's toy in her dresser when I was snooping around, trying to figure out where she hid the jar in which she kept all her spare change. I shuddered. Some things you just don't want to associate with your mother. Story 8. Ever seen a stuffed hamster? A couple of friends and I stop at this guy's house before a night out. He's got 3. Story 9. This isn't so bad, but the friend whose house I'm staying at has an "if it's yellow, let it mellow" policy in her bathrooms, and her kids can't seem to remember the second part of the rhyme. If it's brown, flush it down. I've seen and smelt terrible things. They won't be eating any Taco Bell when I'm in town. I tell you what. Story 10. I was called to the home of a mentally ill person where I saw he had saved every urine stream and bowel movement he had made for probably the last year. Hundreds upon hundreds of jars were stacked up on shelves and he was running out of room. Story 11. An acquaintance of mine and his wife had moved into a newly built townhouse, rented, with 2 large dogs, labs. They had been living there for a few months and I went in to sell him some computer stuff. There was dog excrement and fur everywhere. Lots of dried full-sized piles. Some stamped down and stained into the living room carpet, which I don't think they used at all. They were both computer junkies, so they spent all their time in their computer room upstairs. Going up the stairs, enough shredded fur to make at least 3 or 4 more dogs. Noticed some excrements upstairs on the landing, but their computer room was mostly clean. They didn't have much in the house as far as furniture or anything at all, really. It's not like they were hoarders, just lazy and nasty. Story 12. I had a friend in grade school whose parents were borderline hoarders. Not bad enough to go on the show, but it was difficult to get around the house. Well, turns out that while it was difficult for people to get around it, was like a centipede amusement park. They were everywhere. The big ones looked like they got hit by a stray dose of radiation. I would spend the night and I swear I could hear them scuttling across the floor. Story 13. While in college, I visited another friend's apartment. It was summertime in Maine, a wet summer with much rain. The basement was warm and dark. I had to go downstairs to find a hammer or something, and when I clicked on the light, the entire rug, small area rug at the bottom of the stairs, which apparently collected moisture and runoff from the basement stairs, or the wall seeping water, was completely covered with mushrooms at least 5 inches high. Therefore, if I stepped on the rug, my feet would have sunk about 5 inches into mushrooms. The creepiest thing about it was that the mushrooms would lean towards you when you got close, and would shoot spores into the air when the warm air brushed by them. So it was as if they were watching you or could sense you close, and they would try to spore you if you disturbed the air enough. I had never seen mushrooms react to warmth or something close, let alone try to fire spores into the air to get you. I was equally fascinated and terrified that I might get spores out through my lungs or whatnot. So I bolted. Story 14. A friend of mine is a house appraiser in New Jersey. He walks into the living room of one particular client's house, and there was a glass coffin in the living room with the body of a woman preserved inside, a la linen. The guy says it's his mother. My friend said it was the fastest he ever appraised a house in his entire career. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.